and welcome back to Trailblazer MTG. My name is Paul, or Prop, and in this video we'll be jumping into the round 2 game of the April Trailblazer Asynchronous League. First up, I am going to quickly cover the changes that I've made to my deck between rounds. I will then also cover my opponent's deck. So first up, I made 4 changes to the deck between round 1 and round 2. Hopefully to get a little bit more velocity to the deck, slightly higher impact options. So the additions I'll go through first, and then I'll go through the individual cuts that I made. So the additions that I've made is I have added Greasewrench Goblin, 1-drop. It has mana sink for later in the game. It's a 1-mana 2/1. Pikers are still very strong in this format, and this later in the game allows me to pitch excess lands or cards that are not doing enough, and turn it into a 3/2. Which, you know, it's not the biggest impact, but it is more chance to have a 1-drop with 2 power on the board that can start swinging in. Alongside that, another 1-drop 2 power creature that is also a bit of a mana sink is the Caveron Harrier. This is a solid artifact creature. The artifact will help potentially for turning on Delirium for FOMO, but it's a 2/1 that if you pump 2 mana into it when it attacks, it gets a second body, so it can be swinging for 4 damage on turn 2, which into more controlling matchups is really useful because you resolve 1 spell, and then you, instead of casting more spells, you can just continue to pressure with this until they deal with it, and then you should have options in your hand to rebuild after a kill spell or a wrath. The other change I made, the 2 changes I made, the first one is at the artifact level. I thought about the Ghost Vacuum. It was mostly in because it was a 1-mana graveyard hate artifact that could be repeatedly used. However, it didn't really advance the game plan of killing people. This deck is not interested in getting to 6 mana. At 6 mana, the ETB effects of some 1/1 flyers is not going to have the impact that I want, and so I decided to go for the Unlicensed Hearse. It's a 2-drop artifact, but it can hit 2 cards at a time, which can really tax opponents' graveyards or your own graveyard if you need to make it bigger, and it being a star, it can become the biggest threat on the board within a couple of turns, and then if in the later game I draw a 1-drop creature that's not going to be able to push through, most of my 1-drop creatures have at least 2 power, so they can crew the hearse and really put a lot of pressure on with like 6 or even 8 power and toughness coming in. So I made that switch. Slightly slower up front, but a higher impact on the back end. And then finally, especially with the impact that Faceless Haven had in the last game, I wanted to just add another creature land, and especially one that it's fairly easy to switch on, so I added in Mutavault. Taps are colorless, but it for 1 mana, it can become a 2/2. So it technically for 2 mana, because this is a land that you are using as a creature, but still, that's a very, very low rate, very low cost of inclusion for a creature that dodges sorcery speed removal and can easily be pumped up. So those are the 4 additions to the deck. To quickly go through what was cut to make room for them, the first one is Scorching Dragonfire. 2 mana instant, 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. I was looking through and realized that 2 mana for 3 damage that does not hit players is not kind of on rate and not up to the level of the rest of the deck. for 2 mana, I really want 4 or even 5 damage to creatures or planeswalkers, or 3 or 4 damage to a creature. Maybe there is additional hoops to jump through to get that, but that's kind of the rate that this deck wants to operate, and I think Scorching Dragonfire is just a little outmodded by some of the options that we have there. The other creature that I cut was the Enduring Courage. Honestly, I haven't seen this creature come down in order to have a really good sense of it. However, a 4-mana creature that doesn't do anything on ETB on its own, unless you have 5 mana to then also play a follow-up creature that gets haste. I think at 4 mana, the 2 creatures I have the 2 cards I have are really much more impactful, and I think this is unfortunately maybe just a little slow for where I'm aiming at. Third, the artifact that I cut, as I mentioned, for the Unlicensed Hearse, is the Ghost Vacuum. Like I said, the second part of this, the 6 mana to get a bunch of 1/1 spirits, not incredibly powerful for what my deck's trying to do at 6 mana. And yes, it comes down for 1 mana, but the exile is not the fastest option that we have, which is why it got cut for the Unlicensed Hearse. And for the Mutavault, I decided to cut a Snow-Covered Mountain. I didn't want to reduce my land count. I had 21 Snow-Covered Mountains, went down to 20. There is a borderline chance that it means that I might struggle to cast activate my Faceless Haven or get the maximum damage out of Frostbite. But I think that's a trade-off I'm willing to take for the potential impact of a Mutavault being able to push more damage in a more controlling matchup. So now moving on to my opponent's deck. Some of you who watched the February racing may recognize this. This was my round 4 opponent, who I did end up losing to in what was a fairly interesting match. And so I'm not going to go too far into this. This is also a fairly aggressive deck. It's fairly low to the ground. They have obviously the 4 mana and 5 mana top end options. They are very creature heavy. Not a lot of sorceries, not a lot of instants. Their artifacts and enchantments are pump, removal, and just a couple of like creature lands and utility lands in the pile. I think this is going to be very interesting. We're kind of working on a very similar axis. We are trying to go fast and kill people. They are trying to stick a threat, make it bigger, get it out of burn range, protect it with things like Zach and Ademi, and so I think I'm going to have to prioritize keeping some burn spells on hand to try and clear the way as soon as possible. I think some of the bigger threats, Sentinel with the 4 toughness is important. Obviously, the Gearhulk is could be a backbreaker if they get it on curve. But there is a lot here that is tough to deal with, and so it's going to be interesting to see who is the beatdown in any given game and what we end up working with. As with the previous Asynchronous League, opponent has not made any changes to this deck since round 1. I don't know if they made any changes between the previous league and this. I know that they have added a couple of Turtles creatures, Michelangelo, Mikey and Leo. They also have the ooze. Interesting that I don't seem to be seeing the Mutagen Man, which is a very powerful card in a counters-based deck. But maybe they didn't want as many X spells. The counter doubling from Michelangelo is probably strong enough for them, and there maybe just wasn't a final spot for the Mutagen Man to get in. So that's our opponent. That's their deck, and I will be right back with the start of the match. And we are back. We're just about to get into the match. Okay, we've lost the die roll. I think that could be important for this. However, we'll see. So we have a lot of removal. This doesn't really do anything. This is very interesting. I don't think this is a keep. I'd be interested to look back at it afterwards. We have 3 pieces of removal, right? Let's see whether that... I'm going to mulligan this, but we'll see whether that was the correct decision in the opening turns of play. Okay, I think this is actually much better for us. We're definitely going to keep this. I think I'm going to put this wild right away. I think the removal plus the Punisher is the most important, and we don't need to... I don't want to push damage quite so soon. Okay, tap land to start. I suppose that is good for us, as we will have a 1-drop. Norin can be fairly difficult to deal with and makes your other creatures fairly difficult to deal with. Drawing Chandra was interesting. Obviously, we only have 2 lands. Hopefully, we can build up to having her come down. Probably not on curve, but at some point by like turn 5 or 6. I wonder if opponent is trying to determine whether they want to spend this turn developing their own board or attacking mine. Okay. Interesting. I think I'm going to offer this trade. I don't mind if Norin dies. I think I'd rather put the pressure on. And if they do not want to block, then that is okay. I think I'll... Yeah. I think that's good for me. I think I'm going to play the Razorkin Needlehead. Obviously that gets the damage on their draw step. Maybe it was right to bolt the birds, but I think for now we're more worried about some of their bigger threats, and both of these removal spells do 4 damage. It might have been correct to kill the elves, but I think it might have been overkill with the removal spells we have in hand. Okay. I think I'm going to take out the Beast Caller. Ooh, they have the Tyvar stand. Interesting. Okay. Well, well, then I think we're forced to not attack. Yeah, the protection is obviously very powerful against our direct damage. Have to see what we draw on the next turn. Okay. So this is interesting. Between the Titan Strength and the Dreadmaul's Eye, we can probably trade favorably with what's across from us. And if they do not block, we can potentially sear and move on with our lives. Let's attack. Let's see what they... Ask them to make a decision. If they have another protection spell in hand with the 1 green mana open, I think... yeah. I'm going to decline on these. I'm going to make this a 4/4, and I will trade this. No, I think I need to hit more lands at this point. Okay, they're spreading the power around. Interestingly, I think if they put it on Michelangelo, he might have survived. But... okay, opponent now has... Brutal Cathar is a very useful one to have. Okay, I think in this case, I'm going to play this Faceless Haven, and I'm just going to get rid of the Cathar, get the Needlehead back in play. A 4th land would be very useful. They'd be able to start clearing the board. That is tough. I can kill this if I draw a land, though. Or a 2-mana removal spell that does 4 damage. That's not what I drew. So I think... my best option here is... probably the Squelcher. Actually, no. I'm going to play the Harsh Mentor. I don't know what they might activate, but at this point we're now on a bit more on the back foot. I think at this point they have... the Ouroboros is just going to get very much out of hand. It's going... yeah. All of a sudden, we're now seeing the power of the counter strategy. Opponent, I think, had a very powerful start. The Tyvar stand was a big blowout. The Beast Caller with the Michelangelo in play, and then the Ouroboros follow up. I don't think we had a bad start. but the early kill spell being lost was I don't think I am winning if I block and lose. So I think at this point we're just gonna play what we have out. And we probably just die to trample damage from the Contaminator. They also have the ability to pump with the Abandoned Air Temple now. They can actually destroy the Harrier. Yep. If we block everything, we take lethal. Alright. This was kind of what I was worried about with this deck. Obviously being on the play in this game, hopefully we'll be able to get out to a far enough advantage. Okay, I think this is a pretty solid start. Yep, I'm gonna keep this. Okay, so I think we, yep, turn 2. We're going to attack, and then play the Eidolon. This punishes a lot of their deck, same as ours. So the 2 damage each time they play a 2 mana or less spell, very valuable. Depending on what they play, depends on what land I go for this turn, but... Okay, they didn't do anything interesting. So in that case, I am going to choose to attack. They flash in a blocker. I think that's fine. So now I'm going to play the Mutavault and play this Heartless Hero out. So now we have Seer up, and we can draw a card if we need to. We are getting a little flooded on lands for what this deck wants to do, but I think that's fine. The redraw will be very helpful if we are able to use it, and the potential for surveils to get us to what we need to push through, also very useful. Okay. I'm going to wait to see what they follow up with here. Okay, I think... Yeah, we're going to get rid of Michelangelo immediately. Okay. I'm going to play this Bloodstained Mire. Okay. Yeah, unfortunate draws on the surveil, on the lands. Okay, Brutal Cathar. They're probably going to take the Skullscar Mage, but I don't think that's a big deal for us. Heart for Hero is also has the potential to get out of hand if we get any pump spells. But I think what we're looking for right here is some removal. They're going to make it larger. Yeah, get it out of range. So the question is, do we go get a Surveil land or do we take the draw? I think we take the draw. We have the Surveil land for next turn. I'd rather have the extra card in hand. Actually, I've changed my mind. I'm going to go get the Surveil, because it's unlikely that we're going to hit. We're going to need all that much mana next turn. Okay, Sunspine Links. That is a card we need a lot of mana for. Let's see what we have on top. I don't think Norin is doing it right now. I think I am going to activate. Ugh. Oh, this is frustrating. And we've not cast a spell, which means the Cathar is going to flip. That is a very rough turn. We are on a fairly low land count, and the fact that we are drawing so many lands is very frustrating. But there's not much we can do about it. I'm going to take 4 here. They may even be able... They probably can cast 2 spells, which will flip the Moonrage Brute back, which will take the Soulscar Mage away. Yep. Yep, and we are now deeply in the hole. They're going to take the Skullscar Mage when the Moonrage Brute flips back. I'm taking 8 here if I don't block. Interesting. It feels like not attacking with the Moonrage Brute doesn't make sense. It's going to flip back, so either I block and my Soulscar Mage dies, or I don't block and my Soulscar Mage gets exiled. Yep, I gotta take that. That does help a little, but I don't know whether it helps enough. So for 5 mana, we can get rid of the Brutal Cathar, get our 2 creatures back, but the counters go on the Ozolith. They can put the counter on any of their other creatures. The other option we have is we play the Sunspine Links. It can block 1 creature, and then we can maybe Burst Lightning next turn. But the Brutal Cathar... Well, we play the land. So if we play the Sunspine Links, they take 3 damage... I take 3 damage. It can block the Cathar, the Formation Breaker. It can block everything but trades. and we still have the mana to keep the Mutavault up. I think that works for me. I don't think I need to... This will hold them back. They might flip the Cathar by just passing without casting any spells. But we can pay 3 life to kill it. That's fine. Yep, I'm going to trade this off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we've cleared some of the board. Obviously they can Ozolith, but whatever they put their creatures on, they can make this a 6/6. So this would make it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could... Oh, I can't block that. I think I need to double block here. Monstrous Rage here. So I currently take 6. The Pelt Collector dies. I lose probably the Soulscar Mage, although the Heartfire Hero does represent more damage. Okay, they take that out, take the 5 from it now. Okay, I think if we find a direct damage spell, that doesn't quite do it. So I can't block the Formation Breaker. I have no way to... But 2, 3, 4, 5. I can at least kill the Tam. Unfortunately, that is as much as I can do. I'm going to do it because it gets... But... Yep. Take them to 1 and die. Well, take them to 3 and then die. Yep. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get there. So, we go down 0-2. I think kind of what I expected. Unfortunately, flooded a little hard in that second game, but I will be back shortly for a quick post-mortem of the overall match. Okay, and here we are back at my deck. So, post-mortem of that match. Round one, I think I was game one. I think my keep was fine. Obviously, drawing one of my 2 4-mana spells when I only had 2 lands, and then stumbling on getting to 3 or 4 lands, which I think I really needed to, was a big issue on the velocity in that game. And also, I think the backbreaker, I think where the match really turned, was running my first removal spell, the Obliterating Bolt, into a Tyvar's stand. That with no land or 1-drop, no way of following it up, committing an entire turn to removing a creature and it getting blanked was really just backbreaking in a match where I was stumbling on lands, and just wasn't able to draw into enough threats to get there. Game 2 had the opposite problem. This deck is a little low on lands compared to your average Trailblazer deck, but it still actually has a fairly reasonable amount, I would say. I think both Game 1 and Game 2 were very much outliers for the land count that this deck has, right? In Game 1, it took me a long time to see a 3rd land, and I never saw a 4th land. I think getting to 3 or 4 is where this deck wants to be. It probably wants to be getting to 3 lands by around turn 4, and maybe 4 lands by turn 5 or 6. In order to either be double spelling or being able to cast your bigger threats. Game 2 kept a 3-land hand. I believe, apart from bottoming creatures on a Scry and a Surveil that at that time were not going to impact the board, I was really looking for removal ways to sort of get back online. I pretty much saw lands up until the last draw of the game. Looking at it, if that last draw of the game had been a pump spell, I think I potentially win the game in the end. I think it was very close. I ended up within 1 point of killing my opponent. Drawing a haste creature was good, but at that point I needed to. It was kill or be killed, right? I needed something like a Heartfire that could push enough damage to the face, or enough of a buff that could push the remaining damage through. But yeah, that's the way it goes. The shuffler is what it is. I don't think that my land count is too large or too small. I think I just had 2 kind of outlier games against a deck that is similarly aggressive but does want to hit for 4 mana for their most potent threats, and they were able to hit 4 mana in both games. And yeah, I was really close to getting the last point, but I just didn't quite get there. So we're now 1-1, kind of a similar arc so far to the last league. Took a good victory in round 1, lost to really a similar issue, Screw and Flood. I think in both games, in the last league on round 2 versus this one. So we'll go on to round 3, our next opponent, and I will be back next week with that match. But that being said, if you enjoyed the match, if you enjoyed the content, if you thought that you have any opinions or thoughts you want to share about the decision making or the matchup overall, please share them in the comments. If you wouldn't mind, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing more Trailblazer content. But until next week, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.